Hi, everybody. This is Joanne Eisen with Reach the Unlimited. And I know we're early today. So, for those that didn't know or didn't catch the live, this will be on YouTube and Facebook. So, you will be able to catch this on the replay. But I would like to welcome today my guest, Charlie Kelly, who is a teacher, mentor, and very gifted medium. So, Charlie, thank you so much for being with me today and talking to everybody about who you are and what you do. So if you'd like to share that with everybody, that would be great.
Of course. So you've already gave my name, Charlie Kelly. So I'm known for my platform demonstrating here in the UK. I do a lot of demonstrating through the spiritual centres and churches. It's just unfortunate at the moment that we can't get out as much as we can because of lockdown restrictions. Other than that, I spend a lot of time teaching. I do a lot online at the moment as well, but I do love the classroom. So there will be residentials or just weekend workshops, or seminars where I have to travel through the UK, through Europe, and sometimes a little bit further afield, dependent on how the diary's holding up and how my energy's holding up. So I cover multiple angles, teaching and demonstrating is the main ones.
It's interesting. In case people don't know from the US, a diary is a calendar. So it took me a while every time you said that, the diary, and then I finally put all the pieces together that's the calendar. So just for those who didn't know. But it's interesting, the story and how you got started in even doing mediumship, let alone taking it to the level that you've come to. Do you want to tell people a little bit about how you started?
What the development process, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So like everybody else, I'd have done crazy episodes, or like read a passage, or you go to the internet, or you go to the YouTubes and that sort of stuff, and you start researching it because you're having this change in awareness or change in sensitivity, which leads you down to like a spiritual circle. Much more common here in the UK that I've learned to have like a spiritual center, and they'll have a circle, and then from their circle there may be private circles, closed circles, home circles, and you tend to take all these different kinds of avenues very early on, and all of us, I think we're all guilty of it, where we're so hungry in the beginning that we'll take any opportunity, any chance to be working with the spirit world. And some circles aren't helping you, but you still want to practice and you still want to go. And so I learned quite early on what held value and what was maybe a little bit far-fetched or not quite right, or I certainly wasn't having some of the experiences that I heard so much about or read about, and that sort of stuff. So that sent me on a path of curiosity. Go and find my own philosophy, go and find my own relationship with the spirit world, my spirit team. Some people would call that the guide or the gatekeeper. For me, that it's just a team effort between me and that team, and develop a relationship down that train of thought. So if I understand that a little bit better, I understand me a little bit better, I can then present myself with a little bit more confidence. I think that's the biggest issue that I think we all stumble across is confidence. And once we start to get into place, the confidence that we have developed with the team, whether you're sitting or you do meditation, all that kind of stuff, and we can go into that as well. But I think there's things that definitely benefit, that work for you, not because Charlie does it or Joanne does it. Like Joanne sits for 2 hours every evening, may benefit Joanne, but that definitely didn't benefit me. My mind was very, very active. I had a lot of questions, and I was really, really hungry. So I found that this lots and lots of meditation or sitting or just wasn't proactive for me. It was something that was kind of causing an inner chaos. So once I learned how to still myself, and I wasn't reading the books or watching videos, I found my way of stilling myself and allowing myself that blend with my spirit team. Development picked up very, very quickly. It was a very quick turn of events, which I saw a huge amount of accuracy in my demonstrating, whether that be one-to-one or as an audience based circle, 10 people there, whatever. And I saw a quick increase in the accuracy once I learned that relationship and that trust element that I have with the team. I think it is one of the biggest stumbling blocks is getting out of our own way. And I think it stemmed from the tutors of mediumship, people that teach mediumship. If you're very new to mediumship, there are processes that are implemented very early on, but you don't know why they're implemented. So you just end up doing them. You sit there and you may not even be doing them. You're just arguing with yourself in your head,
Absolutely.
And it's not an encouraging way to move forward in your mediumship. So the relationship would have been the biggest asset that I held because I learned to trust that. And what a lot of teachers will do is they'll say, right, what we want you to do is go get their address, go get their passing, go get their favorite, fill in the blank. And the student of mediumship then is being taught that they have to try to do something. They have to try and get there and try and get this information. And I learned very early on, mediumship is not about trying, it's about allowance. You have to allow it to come in. And with that kind of trained way of thinking of allowance, just let it ebb and flow, let that relationship happen, I realized that I didn't have to try and do anything. If I want Joanne's information, I know that I go to Joanne for that information. And so that information will be very free if I ask you any kind of question, and then have that trust to speak my process was a much quicker way of learning for me, rather than the dense to confidence when you try and go and get their door number or their street name, or and you're trying so hard and then it all goes wrong, and it's a big dent to the confidence. You feel deflated, class hasn't been so good today, and then you're trying to pick yourself back up again. And so I think that the biggest issue we have at the moment currently within mediumship is that the emphasis is definitely focused on me and my relationship with the spirit world. And I think most teachers have forgotten the client element that comes with that. So that and we've all had that difficult client, or we've all had that like overwhelming client that just wants to do all the talking for you, which means I have to handle those things differently. I have to present my work differently for the individual that enters the room, whether it be in a class or in an actual reading. So I learned very quickly that there are 3 points that need to be monitored all of the time: my relationship with the client, my relationship with the spirit world, and obviously the client and their loved one. And what I think, as I've got older and I've done more and more mediumship now, my train of thought is more leading to the idea that I don't think mediumship can be taught freely in the act. I think we have to have the idea of opening the mind to the possibility that Joanne knows Joanne's story. And if I try to get all your information without asking you your information, I'm going to get a lot of yeses and a lot of nos. Whereas if I just go straight to Joanne, Joanne's going to give me every answer that's going to be very accurate. And so the altered state process that we're working in when we're doing mediumship, it is quite a heavily altered state. It's you know, for those that know the numbers, it will be around the 7 hertz to the 13 hertz mark on the brainwave chart. But if you're thinking, I've got to get their address, I've got to get how they died, I've got to get their name, I've got to get their fill in the blank, you can't be in that zone because you're thinking about what you're about to do. You're over analyzing the process. However, I know Joanne knows her name. I know Joanne knows her occupation and her family and her address. And so it's just best that I know that in the relationship that I've built with my team, that they're going to bring Joanne in for the communication. I know you're going to give me that information. At no point do I doubt that process. Why wouldn't you give me it? Why wouldn't you want to tell your loved one that's sitting in front of me all the things that you want to talk about? And so I just learned to trust that. And that process just saw a huge increase in accuracy. And I had to do very little in the process. So it's almost lazy. But yeah, I've joked a lot of the time. I think mediumship is very, very easy when we just relax and just go with it. It's when we're trying. Mm-hmm. It's like anything in life. If we try too hard, you just can't succeed. It just doesn't go well. When you know you can do it, you just go on and do it, don't you? So
the thing that's interesting, and I mean, there's so much of what you said, and it's all very important. But the key point to it is exactly what you said now about it's really easy, but we make it hard because we're trying to figure it out. And I know we're told not to do that. You said you need to surrender into it. But yeah. I think the thing for me and for people that may not even know the process is you're dealing with something that is unseen, unheard, unknown. Absolutely. To what seems to be reality. And so being able to trust that, or as you said, just kind of allow through that and feel through that, I feel like that's one of the biggest hangups that we have as mediums is that trust part that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
But just backing away and allowing instead of like what you were talking about, having to come up with the answers or fishing or grabbing for them. Yeah. What did you do to train yourself not to do that? Or when you started feeling you were doing that?
Yeah, a really good question. What I learned was that if I was to turn around and have a conversation with Carol, and I spoke of 3 things that have happened just today, I could say those 3 things. I could say something like city centre, chip butty, chip roll, and homeless man. Mm-hmm. That Carol would know what I was talking about.
Yes.
As the client, she'll know what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. What mediums have been taught to do is to understand how A meets B meets C. Mm-hmm. And so what I started training myself to do was not try and work out the transition from A to B to C, just say A, B, and C. And in that moment, what you'll find is that let me use that very example there with Carol. Carol, as a client, would then leave and say, oh my God, it was amazing. He spoke about the city centre. He spoke about the homeless man. He spoke about the last meal that we had. But as a medium, I never said that. Yeah. As a medium, I just said city, chip butty, homeless man. But the client will hear and you went to the city centre, you bumped into a homeless man, you stopped at a burger van to get some chips and a bread roll, and that's how the client hears it. So I was very aware of a very natural conversation. So if me and you are having a very normal conversation just at a coffee shop and we're having a discussion, we tend not to talk about the things that you don't know or don't like or you're not part of. I'll keep that conversation on track, or you will keep it on track for me and me for you, in the common interest. And what mediums are trying to do is trying to get all the backstory. They're trying to fill in all the blanks and all the transitional points. And that's where it all fails. That's where it will go wrong, is when they embellish on a singular statement. They'll add ingredients that just was not there through their imagination. And so they in effect turn a yes into a no.
Which is something that is very common. And I think it goes back to that having the real trust in that communication and being able to step back and just, because I know for me, it is a part of I have to understand. So I know that we've talked a lot about our personalities also being a part of how we are as a medium. And for
Yeah.
me, it's like I have to know what all of everything means, when in reality, I'm not going to know what it all means. I just have to trust that what I'm getting exactly what you said. And I know it to be true from the times that I've actually done it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a big part of this journey that we go on on the introduction to how we got into mediumship.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take if you like, I can see some little bits and bobs around you. You've got cards and you've got that sort of stuff
Mm-hmm.
in your background, which will immediately suggest to me that you read cards, you do oracle, maybe tarot, a bit of psychic work,
Mm-hmm.
all of that kind of stuff. And all of those kind of things are initiated with you having to work it out. There's no one giving you that information. It's you reading the energy of another individual. So you need to piece it together. You need to, your mind's working at such a rate that you're having to package this for a client, because that was your introduction to a spiritual journey.
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't interested in that kind of stuff. I'm still to this day, I'm not a huge fan of psychic work. It's just something. I'm a private person. If Joanne wants to tell me something, Joanne will tell me. But the psychic element is that curiosity of me trying to find what that is, or what to do. So the surrender process was a little bit easier because I discovered mediumship first before psychic work. So I had developed this system where I don't need to work it out. This is great. I've just got to ask the individual that's joining me this evening, and he or she will give me all the information. If you approach it from the psychic background, where you're in control, you need to know where your energy is. You need to know what you're doing. You take that into mediumship. And so you're like, well, I need to know this. I've got to get that. I must do this, or it's rubbish. And that's where we start giving a value to something. And the moment we start giving it numbers or value or accuracy is when you have already begun to get in the way already.
Well, that's a whole nother subject, though. I want to come back to the psychic medium thing in a minute, but what you just said is not maybe so much of how you're going into it, but your fear within you of being wrong or being looked down upon or maybe look bad, or you go into that fear category, which is a completely different thing than just trusting that you get ball, ocean, and dog. I mean,
so I was sitting at home, just sitting with the team. I'm learning this relationship. I'm learning what do I need to do? How do I need to say this? And it would just be these one words, and the process would go from there. The problem that we have in the UK and in the US is that we can have some enormous classes. I'm fortunate enough where I can limit mine. I just shut it off at a certain number, and they get enough personal training through that closed number. If you've got 50 people sitting there and it's your turn to get up, and you have maybe 80% of that group that is a little bit heavy on the egotistical side, or a little bit center of attention personality to them, the fear is going to go through the roof. At that point, you've got to deliver. You've got to do it. So that's where you'll start trying to make sure you're going to deliver. I'm going to try and make this as accurate as I can, and that's human nature. That's what we do. But again, my train of thought is I don't care. I simply don't care, because I know he knows, or I know she knows, and I've got nothing to worry about. But I had to learn that. I did have to learn that. That was something that took a little while. It wasn't ages, but it was just a process of that surrender. One time, 5 times, 20 times, that you start to see on analyzing, looking back, hindsight. When I do that, I'm usually right.
Exactly.
And it's usually really good. Or the client will say to me afterwards, oh my God, that was amazing. I've never had it like that before. Or how on earth did you get that? And that happened a lot more frequently than me trying to do something, me trying to get this, me trying to be good and trying to be accurate. That I just thought the other way is much easier. The other way is much easier. I just follow the story. I just follow the process. So it may be city, homeless man, chip butty. You got it? Yep, here we go. And just keep going down that way. Over the course of development, you learn how to present the statement. Oh, there's that feeling again. And so I know I need to present it like this or like that.
I don't want anybody to miss what you just said, because what you just said was really important. Following the feeling. And that's different than following what you think or what you're trying to grasp at or what you create out of your own mind. So it is about following that feeling.
Absolutely. A lot of people, I think they misunderstand things like intuition or the frequency or vibration. It's bandied around quite a lot, isn't there? But I very early on in my development, I trained myself that whenever I got a picture appear in my mind for me to speak about, in that moment, I would just ask, can I have a feeling with that? And if I ever got a feeling, I would just ask, is there a visual representation for that? And so and again, to make that really simple for people to understand, is that the information is coming through in essence format. It's restricted by my mind. It's restricted. But I have 5 senses that I can use, 5. And my mind can only distribute it across 5 senses. So if I can train myself to use all 5 in every statement that I get, then I will offer a fuller picture or a fuller story, because some sounds are best audible. Some pictures are best visual, some feelings are best felt, rather than mixing them all up and trying to squeeze them into only image format or only sound format. So I trained myself quite early on to say, I've got a lot of senses here. Let's get it across the board. Let's try and get a fuller picture.
That's excuse me, that's a very interesting point, because I know that in daily life, we use all of our senses, but we may not be aware that we're using all of our senses. Absolutely. And as we're training or as we're working, you tend to go to what is your most dominant sense. Absolutely. So, because when you were talking in the beginning about meditation or working with your guides, and I know that you are you're a very busy minded person as well. You're always thinking about, solving issues or whatever. What did you do because I know that's a big conversation I have with a lot of people, that they don't think they can meditate. They don't think they can quiet their mind. But what were some of the techniques that you did to, 1, quiet your mind in the beginning, and 2, use or be aware, or at least connected to all of your senses to use them while you're doing a reading?
Yeah, that's a great question again, and I would probably put that into like a turning point within with our mediumship. I'm sure you have had it. The people that are going to watch this have certainly would have had it along their journey. Is that when you get like a teacher or a tutor say something along the lines of, we're going to get into like the Rainbow River, and we're going to go and get in a canoe, and we're going to go to the healing cave, and we're going to meet whoever. My mind was like, oh dear God, what is this? I just can't get on with this. What is it? Doesn't feel real to me. This doesn't feel like it's like an extension of myself in any way. So first I had to learn not to be thinking like, oh, I've got to post that letter, oh, I've got to pay that bill, or what do I do if that happens? And I've got to book the car in. I had to learn to shut them up. So that was just, at first, it was just stilling myself, just learning to still myself. So and what that will do is, the idea won't stop doing it. The chaos of the mind won't stop doing it, but the attention I pay to it become less. So I didn't think about booking the car in, or I didn't think, it's like it would start, but I wouldn't pay any attention to it. or posting the mail, because we think, right, I'll stop at that shop and I'll do this and I'll do that, and then the next idea forms. And I think the brain is designed to do that. Because you're in a woken state, it may be 5 p.m. You shouldn't be dropping through the altered states at that point. And the brain is just like, let's hit the panic button. Something's not right. Let's give them things to think about. And so I'm teaching my body, my brain, and my mind to be in harmony. Like, it's okay. I'm doing this for us. I'm doing this for the vessel still. And very quickly, I could just sit for an hour and I wouldn't fall asleep and I wouldn't have chaos. And then all I done was add the intention of spirit, my team, my lady or my man that would join me, you know, from there. At that point, I remember saying to my spirit team, I can't be doing unicorns and rainbows. I can't be doing that kind of stuff. It's not, I'm not comfortable with it. If we're gonna go on to introduce the spirit world the world over, I do not need to be sounding crazy. I need something that I can work with very easily.
Right.
And they gave me a corridor. It was the spirit world that gave me a corridor, which, as you know, I've recorded a version of that now, and it was just plain and simple. It was just a hallway. It was just a corridor, and on both sides was a door, and behind a door was an experience, one that maybe I needed to look at or go over. And I found that worked much better than, you know, a man that walked beside Jesus or some Egyptian pharaoh that, you know, I'm back again and I'm trying again. It kind of just made it real simple that Charlie could walk into a room and have an experience and then leave the room and come back to normality. That helped. That really, really helped me do that. I was one of them people that if we had like a classroom of 10 people, and the teacher say, so how was the experience for you today, Joanne? And Joanne would maybe say, well, I went on a spaceship and they took me miles and miles away. And I'd be sitting there going, this does not happen for me. This is not happening. I don't know what's wrong with me. Why am I not having these magical episodes that these people talk about? It's just the way my mind is. I'm just black or white. I'm straightforward. And that just made it real simple that if I had just a straightforward corridor with doors, behind the door was an experience, this would help me tremendously. I never knew the value behind the corridor until many years later. You know, so I want to work more with the poor mums that have lost a 20-year-old child in a car accident. And behind the door would be an experience that I could feel, I could see, I could embrace. So when mum walked through the door and her son was unfortunate enough to have this condition, you know, or this episode in their life that ended their life that was involved with a car accident, I had the availability through my development that I knew exactly what this was, and now I can try to help mum through her loss and her grief, you know. So it was very, very specific rooms for very specific reasons, you know, experiences and sensitivities.
I feel like the most important thing in what you said, because I love the corridor, it really helps you to focus in on something specific that I feel like your team is trying to help you with to look more deeply. But the thing that I hear in what you said was, this didn't come to you overnight and it didn't come easy. It was something that you continuously worked on and developed. And I feel like that's the biggest part that I know in America, that's something that we deal a lot with, right? You just want instant gratification. And I feel like that's another part of it, is really committing to your journey and staying true and consistent with your training or what you're going through.
I think you can go one step further than that as well, Joanne. I think that the problem is everyone wants this quick fix. They want it now. I want to be good and I want to be good now. But they're not prepared for the for the hard work, you know, the things that make you question, the things that make you a better or a bad person, you know, that personal development aspect. I think when my mediumship really changed was when I removed the idea of giving up. So there is no possibility of walking away. There's none. This is life now. And we are dedicating ourselves to it. There isn't an option of walking away. Is when my life changed, completely changed. Because I would have those, I'd have those hissy fits like everyone does. Oh, I'm done with this. This is too bloody hard, or I don't know what I'm to do. What? I don't get it. Why don't you just do this? Why don't you just do that? And once I removed the option of giving up, walking away, was when I realized I'm doing this to my dying breath. You know, I'll probably pass on a stage somewhere demonstrating mediumship. That'll be my perfect outing, you know. But I think once that happened is when there was an acceleration, because it wasn't an option to walk away. It wasn't an option to say, I'm going to have 3 months off. I'll really look at it later on, because then 3 months are almost stagnant. Life doesn't really feel fulfilled at that point. So I just bricks up that doorway. This isn't an option. We're learning. We're going to learn everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly about you as an individual. The corridor amazes me because it was so small at first. I could see the end. And every door that I went in, it got longer and longer and longer. So it was the age-old quote of the more answers I got, the more questions were formed from it. You know, there is a famous quote for it. I can't remember it. I can't remember the words.
The thing I like about what you said that's really important is that it's like any relationship. We have relationships with our spirit guides, our team, and it's like a relationship. If you don't build it and commit to it, then that relationship is useless. It doesn't develop. It doesn't grow. So I know that was a part of my understanding as well, was about. And I know you get to those points where you're like, I'm just not getting it. I'm just, you're frustrated. You're having bad days. But it's like anything else that you're learning from scratch, or learning that, or actually we're just remembering it because we were born with it. But you have to put in that time and that effort and that work and make that commitment. So I totally agree with you that is the biggest part of commitment.
I think the biggest problem when we're trying to work through an issue within our own mediumship is that we approach it wrong. So what we tend to do is if we start doing things badly, let's take a one that most people would understand. Let's say relationships, like the relationship of the person that's stepping forward, and I'm aware that I'm not quite dialing that in. I'm aware that I'm not quite getting that right. I'm already getting frustrated. I'm already feeling bad. I'm producing like a negativity within the area that I'm offering for mediumship. And now we keep going for it. Now we're going to keep pushing for it. And the more I fail, the more negativity I offer to the scenario. And what the tact that I tend to try and give to people is just leave it there for now. Just leave it there. It's fine. It's fine. It can sit there for a month if it needs to. Go do things you're good at. Go do things or areas that you are wonderful at. It's just so free and so easy for you. Go do that. And once you get yourself back into the point of where you were, happy, you love what you do, and you can't wait for that time to be with them again. Once we're back there, then pick it up and try again, because the energy is a much better energy to work with. If you keep noticing that I'm failing, you're just drilling home the message. You're not good enough. And that I don't think that will ever produce like really good mediumship. So it's just put it on the back burner for a little while. Go do the stuff that you're good at, get that feel good factor about yourself again, and then approach it again. It's not just relationships. I mean, anything that you stumble across in your mediumship.
Well, that's a different mentality than giving up, because you know that you're taking, it's like when you first learned how to walk, you didn't just get up and walk, you had to fall. And we forget that that's the process that we go through. But it's that emotional, I'm less than, or I'm not good enough. That's the part where you can start tripping yourself up and not wanting to
damage as well. You're causing a lot of like mental damage on yourself there. I mean, I think, like, it's like I see it quite childlike. It's like, I remember as a kid, I don't know if you ever did it yourself, but I remember trapping my fingers in the car door. Have you ever done that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you'll never do it again, though, will you?
Never do it again, and still remember what it felt like.
Yeah. But you had to do it that one time to learn. Don't leave your hand there when that happens, because that hurts a lot. And I think mediumship development's very much like that. We have to have these big falls where we cut our knees and we graze the palms of our hands, and it stings a little bit. It's a little bit painful, a little bit raw, but you won't make the mistake again. So it's a massive learning curve when we do it like that. I think if everything just went smoothly, it wouldn't be as special as it is. If it was just like, here we go, just do this and your life will be amazing, everything's just perfect. We get upset, or we feel hypersensitive, or we get caught in the moment with that of an audience or that of a client, because we've been there. Because we've hurt like that, and the reason we do the job or the service for that voice of the voiceless is because we don't want someone else to hurt like that. We don't want someone else to endure it in that way. And so I kind of try and take the positives out of it. It was tough, it was hard, but I got up and I come back, and now I can maybe prevent you from having this issue or this problem, or being there as long as I was there. So it's those, take the positive even when it's terrible. There's got to be something in it, and that just fuels me to then move forward. I mean, I never dreamed 10 years later I'd be sitting doing what I do. There's no way.
I can, but that's another subject. I can understand what you're saying too about when you fall, because the lesson is same analogy with the door. It's not like you have to go through that, but it's still a part of, I think, our life experience and our learning as we go forward from what is, I think, innate or in nature to us, to be able to see those flaws that we can actually change. Because I know in working with you that there's been certain things that I've done, and it was such an important lesson to me, as you said, that I would never forget that. But I can also tell that that was a part of, not only in my mediumship, but it also was a part of my life, and something that I needed to pay attention to or look at. So I agree with that.
I think there's an element of compassion that comes with it, So like, I'll give you a very real-time scenario. My doorways in my home, this is a very old cottage. The doorways are about there on me. So I have to crouch under the door to get through. I'm 6 foot. I have to crouch to get into the door. And a couple of weeks ago, I was walking through the door and I rattled my head off it. I nearly knocked myself out. And I'm holding my head like there's going to be blood. There's going to be blood. It hurt that much. And everyone in the house laughed. Oh, that's hilarious. You've just nearly knocked yourself out on the door. Then my 16-year-old son done the same thing on the same day. And so in that moment, you can laugh, but I know exactly how that felt. I've still got the rawness on my head from doing it. I understand how much that hurts. So I'm there's like an energy, compassion. Oh my God, I know exactly how much that hurts. And I think those episodes help in the act of mediumship, when we understand someone's pain, when we understand, and I don't mean just from the client point of view, I mean from tutor to student point of view as well. I know where you're at, and this can be difficult, this can be hard. I know exactly where you are, and you have like a time hop. you go back to those times where you're like, oh man, I remember being really stressed out, or sleepless nights, or I'm giving up, you know. So the compassion part of you kicks in. And now I have an understanding. Now let me try and guide you differently. So you
That's
don't.
an interesting point, though, that you bring up. It brings me to thinking about, do you, because I know there's a lot of talk about everybody's born a medium, and I do believe that we all are born with these abilities because we're not a human being, we're a soul that's in this body. But what do you say to people that just feel like they're not for this, or how do you feel about that statement?
I think mediumship is just simply the openness of someone's consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So if your world has never required a god,
Mm-hmm.
or a higher being, or something that you would pray to or bind yourself to, such as a religion or anything like that, you will never get that individual to look at something like mediumship. It's only in the moment of absolute despair, they're on their knees in pain or grief or burdens, that they will turn to a god and ask for help. So their mind has been broadened or widened or opened to look external rather than just place it upon themselves. So I think it's their journey. I think their God needs to be absent, and my God is very, very present within my time. But I don't think my lessons are any more or less than the individual that's God is absent in their reality. So
Yeah.
I don't, certainly won't happen in my lifetime. I don't think we'll get everyone on board with an idea of, but we're definitely making waves. We're definitely getting people to think a little bit more about it, aren't we? So, I think we're in a good place right now. We're in a good place. We just got to bring the substance with it, the accuracy, the evidence that comes with it. And people, I think, will then sit up. You know, like if you're so on point, people would then be right. There must be something in this, and you could turn an absent God into a present God.
Absolutely. So with that being said, I know that, most mediums that I've come across or spoken to, they all do come from something that happened in their life. But
Yeah.
with people that may be just coming to that point or curious about it, what do you think about would be the first steps for them? And is there, like, I know for me, I feel like every person that's come into my life has been significant for a specific reason. So with
Yeah.
that being said, how would you go about finding someone who would be good for your beginning of mediumship?
I mean, we've seen the damage finding the wrong people can do. I mean, I've seen many students that have come through the door or on online with crazy ideas that just don't fit. So I think I always like to place it on reason. You know, is it insulting me? Does that seem like it's right in any way? Can I give that any kind of substance? Would be the best place to sort of follow. You know, that doesn't sound real. That doesn't sound like it's right. Then your reason is insulted. So from there, I would build my philosophy or my understanding of what it is that I'm looking at to someone of a likened philosophy. What you're saying seems to resonate with me. I'll sit with you for a little while to see if I can glean anything or learn anything from you. And then that time will definitely come where there's an outgrowing, or the philosophies are taking different routes or routes. And so we have to then find the next one. So I think it unfolds perfectly timed. I think
I agree.
the teacher appears when the student's ready, I think, is the old Chinese proverb, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think at that point that falls perfectly in line with what you were saying there. But I think we learn a lot from bad teachers or bad
I
ideas
agree.
as well. You know, we learn what is our philosophy, and because we feel very passionate about it, and I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna stand up for it, and we learn who we're becoming because of those episodes. So they're just as valuable as those ones where you go, oh my God, my mind is blown. This is an amazing class or lecture. Or I think they hold the same in value. You'll learn just as much from a bad one as a good one.
I do want to come back and emphasize the listening to what works for you. And if you feel like you're just not resonating with it, or it doesn't seem right to you, to listen to that and question. I also feel it's about building a good community of other like-minded people.
Yeah.
Not that you kind of agree with everybody. I feel like you need to have diversity in that community too, because it causes you to think about what is your real truth and what resonates with you. But definitely pay attention to the energy or what you're feeling in your gut about whether it really seems true to you. Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you got to remember that the layers or the levels of comprehension are they're so different to everyone. You know, so I'm not someone that likes to use like words like ascension or you're much more higher frequency, you know, or a higher vibration. I'm not one to use that kind of terminology, but the comprehension that you're pitching at, I mean, we especially if we're becoming a community, we have to have an idea that you say like-minded. I've always laughed at that terminology, because we've got one thing in common, one thing, and that's the spirit world. Everything about me and you together, we are very different. So we've got one thing in common.
That's funny.
It's always made me giggle, and I think we have to sort of go out with like a blanket answer or a blanket way of covering most of, but it's the intricacies that will then cause the friction or the conflicts within areas, corners of said community. You know, so from there, it's like, especially if you're a teacher, I think what you have to do as a teacher is to teach the limitless potential that the spirit world is.
Absolutely.
Limitless. But right now, through my own experience, I've been taught a lot of restriction. So there's like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And you're kind of like, hold on a minute, is that not a little bit contradictory to the week of Limitless? So I went off my own little pathway that would then look at the things that are deemed right or wrong. You know, some I agree with, some I strongly disagree with. But it formed me. It formed my style, my way of working. Opens my mind, my comprehension. You know, week after week after week, I feel like I'm just chipping away, opening it up more and more. So, I think we've got to just change that idea that we have, that spark that says, I cannot stand on a stage and say they're all knowing. It's all oneness. You know, we come together, we're part of the whole, the God thing, you know, that energy, that godlike energy. Except if you do this, or if you do that, then you're not part of the oneness anymore. And you're like, well, how does that work? How can we all be part of one? But if I break a rule, then I'm not part of your gang anymore. That makes no sense to me. That gets me thinking. Things like that really get me thinking. That then I explore what my thinking is, or my way, or how am I going to access that. That led me to knowing that the truth and the essence of what spirit is and what evidence is. So the truth and the essence of the spirit that I'm working with right now has to bring with him or her a package that was them. That's not to say they're them now. That's them saying, this is what I did. So facts and figures, here it all is. which then made me look at things completely differently. My reality kind of changed a little bit when I started to look at things differently, rather than from a limited or restricted way of thinking. So for me, and again, it is just my opinion, I don't think people are putting like, you go and sit in that corner until you've learnt your lesson, and then you lot go play. For me, it doesn't work in that way. And I think mediums have this this restriction that they think the human characteristics or personalities go with it, with their person, their loved one, their mum, their dad, whatever. But that's just the evidence that goes. It's the evidence. So they bring back the personality, the facts and the figures. At that point, I'm not looking for a person with hair this long and curly or round and wears glasses and wore a green shirt with a blue jacket. I don't look at that anymore. I don't treat it like a human being. I treat it as a spiritual being. But what's your story? What's the package? What did you do? And then they bring that forward. That's how I unfold that, rather than like a police description.
You do realize that you blew everybody's mind with this, right? You realize that people are like, because it's like any other religion where they think they have the market on their religion, right? They have all the truth, they have all the knowledge. And I do believe in the mediumship community as well, that you have different sects that believe in different things. And yet, if you think about all things possible, or all things possible, you can't limit all things possible. I totally agree.
I recently put like a little page ad thing up where I honestly believe it, wholeheartedly believe it. We are restricted to the limitation of our imagination. If I can imagine it, then I can do it. And then it's almost like, just give me a moment, let me work it out. I've just got to work out how I can do that, because I've imagined it now.
Right.
So it's possible, because I've imagined, there's the end product. Now I've got to go and do it, and then just reverse engineer it. So I love it when people say you can't do that in mediumship. Watch me.
Because you should be able to. You can't put spirit in a box. Spirit's not going to go in a box.
They're limitless.
Yes. And then I just had a conversation the other day about one with you and somebody else, a couple other people, about the fact that when you die as a human, that you go to the other side with that personality, as in you don't move forward from where you left off here, which to me just blows my mind, because again, that's a limit, right? That's a limiting belief. When we don't really know what it is on the other side yet. We haven't gotten there. So we just have to go on what we experience through communication with the other side.
Absolutely. I can't get my head around me continuing over there. That's just
and not continuing beyond whatever.
I'm just stuck there doing that. It makes no sense to me. As a facet of my overall spirit and experience, it's just it's like that episode of shutting my fingers in the door as a child. It's an episode. It doesn't define who I am. It was just an episode. My spirit has an episode of Charlie, or your spirit has an episode of Joanne. Next episode.
If you think about it on another angle too, though, if you think that the spiritual world is intelligent, and we're showing the intelligence of the spiritual world when we're doing mediumship, especially through evidential mediumship, then you can also say that we go back into the spiritual world from where we're at now, because that would limit our intelligence.
Absolutely.
It makes no, because we as human beings on this planet, clearly from the way we run the world right now, are not showing intelligence.
Absolutely. So that's where I said earlier in this episode, where there was there's something that causes friction with reason. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
But so what you can see, you've clearly gone, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And that caused the train of thought that went off in like a spider diagram. Bang. now, and so then you're forming your own philosophy, your own way. And so what happens with it is almost like this this passion gets built. It's almost like, I need to defend the intelligence of the spirit world. It's like, I go get my shield and my sword, and I'll go fight your corner. And that's what makes it wonderful. That's what makes it beautiful. That you're hunting for the answers. You're trying to not insult reason. What connects with that comprehension that I can hold in my very limited mind right now? What will fit there? And that's how we progress, and we just keep moving and moving and moving. I think you would be a letdown to yourself if you start in your first year of mediumship with an idea and you ended your life many years later as a medium but didn't move that philosophy. It would say that you haven't learned anything.
Right.
Because that should change. Like passion changes, doesn't it? I mean, the more and more I do mediumship, I have a clearer indication of direction. I need to go down this route now. I need to go and explore down here. I need to go and do that. I've never been a medium that wants to sit in a room one-on-one, day after day. I've never wanted to do that. I do that, but not just only that. The idea formed new ways, new passions, new drives. So now that gets me to look into this, ask myself about this, the personal development here, and the self-confidence here. And now I've grown as an individual. If that happens there, then my philosophy has to grow. It has to move. It has to move very, very freely, just the way our passion does or our ideas do. So I mean,
absolutely. That's what we're here to do, though, is to expand. It's not here to be in a cookie cutter kind of situation and just not think for ourselves. Yes.
Sit over there, be quiet, don't ask any questions. Go. No, not for me. Not for me.
I don't do that well either. The other thing I say, I was thinking of the one alike is mental mind. I always crack up when I say mental mind to you. Why do you Americans say mental mind?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of Americanisms that blow my mind. I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm sure it's vice versa as well.
Yeah.
I can't get over the one that just sticks with me the most is bangs. I just don't get that. Bangs. That's a firework goes bang, or a tire that's got too much air in it goes bang. Or a gunshot goes bang, but bangs on your head makes no sense to me whatsoever.
I have never looked up how that came to be. Now I'm going to have to look up how bangs came to be. Now you got me curious. Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any last tidbits that you want to share with everybody?
I would say definitely enjoy yourself. I think the biggest thing I see as a tutor of mediumship, and I do a lot of teaching now, and I see a lot of individuals, is the burdens they bring into the classroom before the class has even started. So we're trying to work with that thing that we love so much and we're so passionate about, and we want to show the world. However, I've got a suitcase of problems with me that I need to bring into the class with me. So I think the car door scenario would be like the best kind of sign off. I mean, go break legs and arms and wrists and ankles and cut yourself like incredibly bad with all the mistakes and the errors that you're going to make in your mediumship, but don't worry about it. Just relax. Enjoy it. So what? You looked an idiot, and now get on with it. And the more you fight that, if I could show two versions of people, one that was very laid back and didn't care, and one that was so proud and like, I don't want to make a mistake, and I could show you their journey 12 months later, the one that didn't care would just be swimming along, and it would just but the other person will be still shackled to the start because they're not prepared to look the fool or be the idiot or get it wrong, So I for me, it always has been the more you fail, the more you learn from those failings. You know, it's much better than getting things right but mediocre right.
That's a key. That's big right there. You're better to fall than to just go mediocre, because then you're not really giving the full essence of what it is that you're here to do and what you're here to give. But for people, because I feel like I know ego can be a big part of this whole thing. We talked a little bit in the beginning about ego, but in some people it's about either a past belief or experience, or worthiness issues. What do you think would be a helpful tool in helping people? Because I feel like a lot of the people that I've known that are in that kind of category, me, myself, and I, it's about wanting to so sincerely and deeply want to be a vessel and a service to the spiritual world.
So firstly, I think you've got to address the ego. You have to address that. Mm-hmm. Every single person that is human has an ego. Every single person. And so I think the key to that is exercising the ego at the right time. So it's absolutely there. You're a fool if you're going to sit there and say, I haven't got an ego. Is your ego saying, I haven't got an ego? So it's learning that you've got to exercise it. You've got to, you know, give it a walk. Treat it like a family dog. You know, that it needs walking from time to time. It needs nurturing. It needs feeding and watering. And so what that does is it gives it a place, so it doesn't rear up when you've got center stage in the classroom, or center stage on your you know, at your spiritual church or your spiritual event. It's not going to rear itself because it's got a routine. It gets exercised. It's got permission to be out at other times. So once you address that, it falls into the self-worthiness, you know, self-confidence, and you know, am I good enough? Why me? Why me? And I've always come back to the equality. Spirit always speak of equality. We're not better than you. You're not better than us. We're equals. Everything's equal. Well, then that's your self-worthy issue straight out the window. Why not you? So why me? Why not you? I mean, look at the experience that you've got. Look how many people you could help with the horrendous story that you have so far. How many people can you go on to help and save and do? So that's why you, because you're a survivor. You survived your story. You survived the traumas or the ordeals or whatever it is. Now go save people. Now go show people that there is hope of survival after such tragedy, or you know, whatever. So that would be there, and the self-confidence comes with the relationship. It's just like again, you said it earlier, with a relationship, it needs nurturing, it needs working on, and I think we've all had that in a relationship where you go, oh God, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do this, I don't, can you come with me? And the moment the other half of that relationship says, come on, let's go with it, all the fears drop out. They go, because I've got someone here with me, someone to hold my hand, someone to guide me through, or give me, or just nothing. They're just there is enough to get you through the thing. And that's what you build with your spirit team. I am horrendous when I'm going on a stage. I can throw up. I'm shaking. I'm like, oh my God, why do I do this to myself? Why am I here? Why all these people have come out to see me? But then I look for my communicator. I see my team, and I'm like, oh, that's why I do it. You're here. Yeah. You go. And that it's instant. It's an instant switch for me.
You know, you brought up a memory really quickly, because I know we're over an hour, but and I don't want to keep going with that too long. But I'm a part of Clubhouse. I don't know if anybody's not heard of Clubhouse. I'll tell whoever. But anyway, I was in a room that I had joined, and we were talking about spirituality. And I think that sometimes we take for granted what we've learned and where we've come. And so I was talking to people about, you know, they were saying about how much evil and hardship there is in the world, and the why, and why is this happening, and da 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 da. And so I asked the question, but you have to ask the question about who are we? Ultimately, who are we? And what are we here to learn? And none of them knew what I was talking about. And it
Yeah.
really was awakening to me that where I'm at, I wasn't always there, and not everybody is there. And that's the why, because I was able to gently and at their level try to at least open their minds to more possibility that life does exist after death. And they just couldn't understand that.
Absolutely. Just you only need one seed, one seed for them to go away. That may not flower for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it's planted. It's there. It's already there. So
right.
Yeah, I think it will forever be doing that. I think that there will be these angles or pockets of humanity that will have. They just won't accept it. They just won't accept it.
And I feel like that's their path in this lifetime. Yeah, that's what they're here to learn.
Experience. It's their experience.
Right. But like you said, you're putting that little seed, like everything I said to them was just a little seed that they can think about. And some of them will decide to grow it and some will decide to just keep it buried for.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been a lot of fun. I sure appreciate you sharing with us your wisdom.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, everybody, for being here, asking your questions. Pretty much, I think we kind of touched on everybody's questions, but if we haven't, we'll get back to it. And for all of you on the replay, please put your questions and comments in the comment section. We'll get back to that as well. And have an amazing day. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.